I've enjoyed a career as a portfolio musician playing trumpet, piano, bass guitar, a few other instruments, teaching, producing, arranging, composing and songwriting in all sorts of styles, from classical to pop to jazz and more, playing solo, small groups, brass bands, orchestras, MD of large pop rock ensembles and more. In terms of being a female, I never knowingly experienced any prejudice, just assumption. Some people might assume you won't be a very good player or that you might only play classical music, but in my experience, as soon as they hear you play pop or jazz or whatever, they embrace it fully and those assumptions are dispelled. Many times a musician has said to me, "I didn't expect you to be able to play like that," whether that's a compliment or insult is arguable, but as soon as they do realise what you play like, you're included just like anybody else. It might be that in a lineup of men in a section you don't get offered a solo at first, but as soon as you do, it's fine. It seems to be different for different genres. In my experience, women were expected to be the same as men in brass bands, orchestras and wind bands, but there was that element of surprise in some circles if you could play a good jazz solo or driving rock pop performance, with the exception of being a singer. I have thought about this a lot over years and have not reached any definitive reasons as to why. It was also the case that when I taught mainly pop and jazz music in colleges, FE and HE, most of the students, apart from the singers, were male. Female musicians were usually more reticent to play solos too. However, there are plenty of great female players that do, who operate locally. The Tyne Valley Big Band, who I play for, stands out for having many female musicians in it in a traditionally male environment. It has been the case though that if I was in a situation that I couldn't play very well, or as well as the others, or as well as I would like, as well as feeling personal frustration, I would feel somewhat accountable that I was letting down the team somehow, as I am representative of a group that is sometimes subjected to assumptions, so I shouldn't put myself in a position to perpetrate the myth that women can't play very well or improvise. My advice here is to create as many situations you feel comfortable in as those that challenge you, so that there is always a balance. I think that you might have missed out on being asked to join the band occasionally for not fitting the profile. Maybe they wanted cool lads, but you're going to get that in any job where being seen as part of a role and occasion, for all sorts of parameters, whether it is age, gender, size or some other factor. Generally, I think musicians are much more oblivious to differences than some groups, as we grow up with heroes of all ages, ethnicities, looks, cultural backgrounds, orientations, etc. If you ask, has being a woman caused a disadvantage to me as a musician, I would say barely. If you want to take advantage of it, my advice would be to make it a unique selling point where appropriate, but not where it compromises being assessed on a level playing field musically. It's a different kettle of fish for those whose careers are larger and local, with the expectation of what you're allowed to wear or look like, but if you operate on a fairly local scale, there is not this pressure. People could try to include something that not so many other people do. Female vocals or showmanship like Gunnhild Carling if they want to be a solo entertainer. But of course it's fine if you just want to play. It's always enjoyable to see or work with female musicians who do break these assumptions, and there are many, but not as many as there should be, I don't think. It's mainly about attitude. If you are not aware of or are determined to overcome any perceived differences, barriers or expectations, the same doors will be opened on the whole. An early experience of the sometimes blurred lines between amateur and professional musicians. As a teenager, I played with Kingswood Village Silver Band in Surrey. One rehearsal, a group of players came along for a blow. The conductor, Fred, said, "They're rather good, could you ask them to come every week?" Turns out they couldn't, as their diaries were very full. They were Alan Downey, Derek Watkins and other members of the BBC Big Band. To nominate a female brass track, Gunnhild Carling, Happy.